You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, guys, very excited for this interview today. We're getting the opportunity to speak with Christine Huey. Now, I got the opportunity to meet Christine at a CampFi about a year ago now. And what's so fascinating about this is she had heard about CampFi as a result of our podcast, us mentioning it on the show. She went there and what she described, looking back, as a life-changing experience. Now, to set the frame for this, Christine and her husband, they're newlyweds, and within 6 weeks of their marriage, they experience an 85% reduction in pay, losing the equivalent of $115,000 a year of income, a pay reduction which meant for the first several years of their marriage, they never exceeded $65,000 in income. Now, what's fascinating about this story is instead of just saying this is the path, knocking their head against the glass wall, Christine, as a result of this CampFi, decided to venture out and start her own business. We're going to be exploring her and her husband's journey today. It's an incredible, incredible tale. And to help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I'm doing quite well. And yeah, this should be absolutely fascinating. I know we heard recently about Christine's story in our Facebook group. She's an active member there. I saw it and I knew that we had to get her on the podcast. I mean, they get married and within 6 weeks, 85% reduction in salary. I mean, that would break most people, but they pivoted and started a business and it's thriving. And it's such a wonderful, heartwarming story. And I just cannot wait to bring it to the Choose FI audience. So with that, Christine, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. What a wonderful opportunity. You guys make that sound way more impressive than it feels in my everyday life.
Yeah, so I would like to take a second and just hype that a little bit more. So you started a food tour company in Nashville, Tennessee. The food company, just for our audience, is called A Little Local Flavor, started in April 2018. And my understanding is within the first 12 months, you blew by your 2-year goals and you guys have hosted over 1,900 guests already at this point. Now, we obviously are going to be exploring that story, but I think really for the sake of our audience really appreciating this, we need to go back to that first 6 weeks of marriage. What happens to cause an 85% reduction in pay?
Within 2 weeks of us getting married, so we had our wedding, went on our honeymoon, came back, and 3 days later, I was let go from my engineering job. It was a complete shock, and it was due to a loss of a contract. It was a pretty new position, and I was on day 90 of my 90-day probation period, and they were looking to reduce expenses. So I'm out. And then about 4 weeks later, my husband is a freelancer here in Nashville, does a lot of audio and music work, and he lost his longest standing and most lucrative gig that he was working on. And so just bam, all of a sudden married only 6 weeks with very, very little income. We were down to just under $20,000 worth of income yearly.
Wow. Like Brad said, kind of in his setup, that would break most individuals. And I'm sure that, and I don't want to breeze by this, I'm sure that this was very traumatizing, but just for our audience, your financial position, did you have any savings? What did your life actually cost? Like, how did you actually respond to that after we set aside a significant and justifiable amount of tears?
Yes, there were definitely a lot of tears. I would say we were living pretty large for that time period. We rented this beautiful house in West Nashville that was extremely expensive, $1,550 a month, way more than what we would ever pay for housing these days. I would say we were probably spending $40,000 to $50,000, probably closer to the $50,000 range annually. And so the immediate thing was, holy cow, we have to move. We have to make a lot of these changes immediately. Thankfully, I had quite a bit of savings. There was a severance package and we had savings in a savings account. And then when I was 22, I started investing in a taxable account. So we did have pretty immediate access to that money. However, we were very determined to not rely on our savings to fund our lifestyle. So we were trying to make some pretty immediate changes.
So, Christine, I want to get a sense of your income during this time period. So, it sounds like you lost 115K in income. You were just under 20. So, you're at 135, but it sounds like that was for a very short time. In the preceding years, what were you guys making and what were you saving, I guess? If you're saying your annual expenses were about 40 to 50K, how much were you saving each year for the couple years before you were married?
Leading up to us getting married, I was an engineer. In fact, I was a senior engineer for a plastics company here in town, and my income with bonuses was just over 80,000 a year. I was saving quite a bit. I was putting money into my 401k, not maxing it out. I think I was investing maybe 13%. And then on the side, I was continuing to put money in that taxable account at a rate of $450 to $500 a month.
It seems to me like losing a job as an engineer would basically mean you just go down the street and you get another job as an engineer. Is that what you did?
That's a phenomenal question. I am a very specifically trained engineer. I actually studied printing engineering, which is a very, very specific job role, very specific industry, and one that, as I'm sure most people know, is a little bit of a dying industry in a lot of aspects. Commercial printing is down, books, magazines, newspapers. So I worked in the packaging field. Now, in the South, there are not a lot of individual printing plants. That's really something that is very popular in the Midwest where I grew up. And so there was not another job for me here in Nashville. In fact, I had left a job a year prior, almost exactly a year prior, and I was actually unemployed for 9 months, just trying to find something here in Nashville because my husband's work is music. We decided to stay here versus move for my job because he really enjoyed his job a lot more than I enjoyed my industry.
Yeah, I've heard that they produce a little bit of music in Nashville every once in a while.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
So, Christine, you made incredible moves here. You're quote unquote living large at $50,000 a year in expenses, which, albeit to some people's ears, that probably doesn't sound crazy, but to you, that felt extravagant. And then this bomb hits, right? You lose 85% of your income and you've got to figure out what to do. Talk us through what that felt like.
Yeah, so it was definitely like the house is burning down. We have to make some immediate changes. So the first thing was, how do we get out of this expensive rental? What we ended up doing was we found someone, a friend of ours was moving out of a rental on the other side of town. And he had an arrangement with his landlord where he said, well, if I can find some renters, can you waive this fee that there was or give us a month free? There was some sort of deal for him if he was able to find renters to put into this house, because the landlord lived in Texas. So we were able to snag this very inexpensive rental house that needed quite a bit of work. One of the immediate things we were looking at is, how can we dwindle down our expenses? And we had things like, I had a car payment on my car. So that was a big deal, was, okay, we have this car payment. There wasn't a Choose FI back then. This was in 2014. So I was looking at, what can we do? How can I have my car pay for itself? So almost immediately I signed up for Lyft, which was very new in Nashville at the time. And I was able to earn enough money. In the beginning, we used it to supplement our living, to kind of supplement while Jack was looking for more work as well. And then once we got into a point where things were relatively stable, we had enough income to pay for our lifestyle, we started using that income from Lyft to actually pay down my car payment. So I was able to pay off my car about 20 months in advance of when I needed to. So about 20 months early, was able to pay off that vehicle just from using it to drive around. Some of the other things that we looked at were, what are our goals? So from day one of moving into this rental, we found a unique way to track our expenses. Basically, everything we earned and everything we spent was tracked on a whiteboard on a refrigerator, which is something I highly recommend for people that are a little bit intimidated about tracking their expenses. I know sometimes it's not exciting to say, oh, I'm going to open up this spreadsheet and write everything down or pay for YNAB. So what we did was we actually purchased a small whiteboard. We hung it on a refrigerator, wrote out along the top all 7 days of the week, and we did a 4-week rolling calendar. Every dollar we made and every dollar we spent went on that whiteboard. And we knew that we wanted to buy a house. And in order to buy a house, we really wanted to have a 20% down payment. We had about 5% that we could use, and we just needed another 15%. So we knew in order to do that, that we had to save I think the number was right around $450 a week because of the types of jobs that we were doing, because my husband is freelance, because I was working for Lyft and I was serving brunch at a restaurant and eventually serving and bartending at a second restaurant. We were able to actually work both sides of the equation, which I think is really, really valuable. There are a lot of people in the country that work a salaried position, and that kind of ties your hands a little bit because you don't have the ability to pick up extra shifts. You don't have the ability to work for tips, to pick up something else very easily. Whereas the type of income that we were now making, when we had a big expense, it was like, oh, okay, well, we've got this big thing that we need to take care of this week. All right, well, Christine's going to pick up 4 extra shifts at the restaurant. Jack's going to pick up some shifts at Exit In. And we're going to be able to not just try to reduce our expenses actively, but also try to increase and match our income so that we can hit those numbers every single week. What we would do is at the end of each week, we would tally everything just on a piece of paper right next to the whiteboard on the refrigerator. And the nice thing about doing a rolling 4 weeks is that if you have a bad week, 3 weeks from now, that red is going to go away. And so it was almost like starting over all of the time instead of having to pull open a spreadsheet. We could just real quick write it down on the refrigerator. And it took us less than a year on quite a low income. I think our income that year was about $48,000 combined. But in less than a year, we were able to save that extra 15% income just by being very creative and working both sides of the equation.
It's like a masterclass in hustle.
Yeah. Oh, we're pretty good at hustlers. Definitely pretty good hustlers.
That's wild. I'm curious. In there, you said we knew we wanted to buy a house. That to me is the one like incongruity in this. Where did that come in? So this, like you said, it's like a hair on fire scenario. At what point did that come into the equation? And how do you make room for that in, oh, wow, our income is $20,000 and our expenses are 40 or 50?
Great question. So the house purchasing thing, this was something that my husband really wanted. It was something he really believed in. He always wanted to have a place of his own. And at the same time that all of these things are going on, Nashville is absolutely booming. And so we're seeing the prices of these houses going up really, really, really fast. And so my husband had this thought. And at the time, I'll be honest, I thought it was pretty crazy, but he had this thought that if we don't buy a house in the next year, it's going to be unaffordable for us to live within a short commuting distance from Nashville, from downtown. And he was right. He was absolutely right. Nashville's growing at an extremely high rate. I think we're the second fastest growing city in the nation percentage wise. And within 6 months of us starting our house hunt, we had been completely priced out of every area that we were originally looking in.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was like, we need to buy a house and we need to buy it now while we can still afford it.
So you guys did find a house. I'm curious, you mentioned this idea earlier. You look for ways to basically eliminate expenses, right? So you get this house. How do you offset the expense of a house?
There were a couple things that went into play. The house that we found, we actually found it on Facebook. We had put offers on, I think 7 or 8 at this point. We had looked at 60 or 70. Houses were going for more than asking price within 24 hours with multiple offers. So it was a very tough house buying kind of situation. And we had decided we were going to take a little break. Within a week or so, I'm going on Facebook, and in one of these neighborhood groups, I see someone post a house for sale by owner, and it meets every single one of our criteria. And I said, well, Jack, why don't we just go and look at it? We don't need to bring a realtor. Let's just go to the open house. And we put an offer on the spot. In fact, there were 2 other cash offers while we were there. We saved a lot of money because it was for sale by owner and because we didn't use a realtor. I think that's something that people should not be quite so afraid of. Definitely look into some counsel and look up information about it, but it was not as scary as it sounds offhand. And then the second thing was that it was a fixer-upper. So we knew that it needed probably about $10,000 worth of work immediately. And we were able to get some discount because the inspection was not very good. It was about 78 pages long. If anybody's had a home inspection before, there were a lot of things that needed to be fixed in this home.
There was an appendix for the appendix.
Oh, there was.
All right. Well, let's pause on that for a second because you're in a hot market. Everything's getting bought up. You said that the 2 other people that were bidding on the same house came in with cash offers. Like, you had a good down payment, but you didn't have an all cash offer, right?
No, we did not.
And so
We did
what
not.
was it that put you over the edge and made them more interested in your offer?
We ended up offering over asking price. I'm trying to remember how much more.
No, it's fine, but you
Yeah, but
just
we
went
ended
over
up,
it.
yeah, we offered, I think, 10,000 over asking price. And we actually didn't get the house the first time around. It went into a bidding war and we increased our offer one time. The other young couple increased their offer again. And we said, that's fine. They can have it for that price. But once they got their inspection back, they backed out very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, we're getting calls from the owner saying, well, we really liked you guys. Do you still want this house? I said, but tell them we'll only do it for our original offer price. So we're not going to do this whole escalated thing anymore. And it wasn't the original asking. We did still pay about 10,000 over asking price, but we were able to get the house the second time around, which was pretty great.
Cool. So now you have a mortgage. What were you able to do to offset the cost of the mortgage?
Yeah, there were a couple things. We did end up getting a roommate. It is my husband's best friend. So we charge him below market rate, but he pays the equivalent of about half of our mortgage, which is wonderful. And then there's something kind of unique about our property. We actually have a full acre and we've got 18 fruit trees on our property. So we do our very best to keep those up. And in the very beginning, we were harvesting the fruit and giving it away or trying to sell it. And the second thing that we did was all of my life, I love cut flowers. And my husband, while we were dating and both of us had very good incomes, he would very regularly, probably once a week or once every 10 days, purchase a bouquet of flowers for me, which of course was cut out immediately when we lost our income. And so when we bought this house with quite a bit of property, I said, well, why don't we grow cut flowers? Because I love and I miss having flowers in our house. We probably still can't afford to have flowers all the time. And so I was able to do that. And we started selling, I'm not sure that you could say shares, but there were a couple of people that we would do monthly deliveries for.
I know nothing about the idea of essentially homesteading, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're talking about to some varying degree. You're growing produce or fruit in this case, and you're growing flowers. Is that a good side hustle? Is that worth the time of investment? Like, just tell us city people a little bit more about that.
In reality, probably not. I'm not sure that I could say that I think it's a good side hustle, but it's not one that's going to make you a lot of money for your time. I think what it really did for us is it plugged us into our community. All of a sudden, we were able to gift our neighbors fresh peaches in June. Of course, there were plenty, I think most women would be thrilled to have a bouquet of fresh cut flowers show up on their doorstep. So we were using them to give away to neighbors, to friends, to bartenders and people downtown that I was working with at the time. And it was something that really kind of plugged us into our community. And it was a way for us to continue giving and doing very nice things without having a huge exorbitant cost associated with that.
Christine, I'm curious about the actual house. You're describing it as fairly close into the city. It has this acre with fruit trees and flowers. Has this appreciated in value since you purchased it?
It has. We bought our house in August of 2015, and it's now worth about 50% more than what we paid for it, which is really something. There was one thing that made me very nervous about purchasing this house, and that is there is a big TVA easement on the house. And so if you think about these gigantic power towers that run these huge kind of power cables, we have one of those in our side yard where all of the fruit trees are. I was very nervous about that. I thought, oh my gosh, this is something that's going to reduce the value of our home. It might be hard to sell it someday. And it turns out that this thing that I was so concerned about has been the absolute biggest blessing. It means that we have more space. Nobody's looking directly into our windows. We've got these wonderful fruit trees, and it actually gives us a perfect view of the sunset most days of the year. And we're about 10 minutes from downtown Nashville with no traffic. I can be downtown in 10 minutes.
Wow, fantastic.
It was really a gem.
So, Christine, you got hit by this bombshell and you've got to pick up the pieces. I mean, what did this feel like, I guess, mentally when you're getting back from your honeymoon? Like, this was a thrilling time, right? And then your life, basically, many people would consider falling apart. You've picked up the pieces and you've put a life back together. That's wonderful. I'd love to hear about the psychological journey.
It was definitely a roller coaster, starting pretty much at the bottom. It was a lot of heartbreak, a lot of very, very hard times. But what we found is that through basically financial demise, we had the opportunity that most people don't have. Well, maybe most people have, but we had this very rare opportunity where our entire life was blown to bits and you have to rebuild it. And when you get to rebuild it, you figure out that you can rebuild it the way that you want it to look. So, in order to kind of combat the huge amount of depression, anxiety about finances, to be honest, I was feeling pretty worthless after having such a hard time finding a job that was anywhere near what I was doing in my past. And so I really took stock in what are the things that I always wanted to do that I wasn't able to. And one of the big things is I love spending time outside in any capacity. So I made sure that working around driving for Lyft, working around serving brunch on the weekends and bartending in the evenings, that I was spending a good chunk of my afternoons outside. That to me brought me so much happiness. And so I was able to build this life where previously, because my husband works in music and he does the audio for live shows here in Nashville, which means he works nights and he works weekends. As you can imagine, with a traditional engineering schedule, we didn't get to see each other very often. I was up and out the door before 7, and he wasn't getting home until 12:30 to 1:30. So we didn't see each other awake very often. And all of a sudden, we had this opportunity to build a life where our schedules were very similar. So he was working nights, I was bartending nights. We were spending a ton of time outside. I found that I really loved gardening. That's where the fruit trees were already there, but that's where the idea of growing these flowers and growing vegetables, mostly for us, not for sale, came into play. And what was really great is over time, I realized that, gosh, I really loved my life. I was making less than a third of what I had made in the past. And yet I was living this life that I absolutely loved. I couldn't wait to get up and work for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, really, really hard. And then I would have a break in the middle of the day and then I would go bartend. And I absolutely loved almost every second of it. It was really great. And it's an opportunity that not many people have, because if we wouldn't have lost that income, we would have never chosen this path. There is no way that I would have walked away from that much money without a guarantee, an almost guarantee that I would be where I was then, or honestly where I am today. And so that loss of income and that huge kind of, honestly, just punch in the face was what allowed us to be able to build this life that we absolutely love. And it was the greatest blessing in the end.
You know, Brad, Dominic Cortuccio in his book, Design Your Futures, describes this concept of an awakening. And usually he says an awakening happens when an external force thrusts itself against you. Usually, in many cases, it's something traumatizing. That's what this sounds like, doesn't it?
Yeah, Jonathan, you're absolutely right. And you know, what's funny, as we're recording this, I literally just picked up Dom's book last night to reread again. And I'm on the page where he describes that cycle, which is funny. You obviously had no idea when you brought that up, but this is exactly what he's describing about these scenarios that you just never know when it's going to hit you. And hopefully you can design a life and design a future that fits you without this negative external event. But man, take advantage of it. Unfortunately, right? Like Christine, in this scenario, you got hit with this event that you never would have wished upon yourself, but you made the best of it and you designed a life that you're happy with. And you got to see these areas when, like you said, rebuild it the way that you want it to look like.
What's so fascinating about this is you've effectively house hacked, you've pulled off side hustles, you've learned how to put yourself in momentary places of financial discomfort in order to focus on what it is that you actually value. And I don't know, who were your mentors for this? Because this, like you said, a lot of this is happening in 2014. I know you listen to our podcast, but you weren't getting this information from us. Was there anybody in your social circle that you looked to for financial advice? And what changes did you make when you found our community?
I was very, very blessed. Growing up, I was raised with a huge financial acumen, to the point that my grandmother, my dad's mom, I remember being 8 years old. We would always spend a week with them every summer, and we would be sitting upstairs in her bedroom on the bed, and we would be watching CNN, and she would have us looking at the ticker tape, and she would tell us a little bit about it. So to make it more interesting, I remember her telling us she was looking for IBM, and she said, Christine, every time a stock symbol comes up on that ticker tape, it means that someone bought or sold that company. Every time you see IBM, which was a very highly traded stock at the time, tell me how much it's at, because when it hits 105, I want to sell it. And it was, 102, 101, right around there. And so from the time I was very young, I learned a lot about stocks. I learned a lot about the market. And then my parents really raised us with a lot of financial knowledge. They would continually talk to us about finance. They weren't necessarily super open about our family's finances, but they would talk about the idea of if you ever had a large amount of money from the sale of a house or the sale of a business or any number of aspects, there's this great thing where if you put it in the market, you can live off of the dividends or you can live off of the interest. So try to save as much money as you can and just live off of the interest and never touch that principal. So I really grew up with a ton of financial knowledge. I had my parents to lean on a little bit. And then it was around that time that being outside and walking, I started listening to podcasts. And the first podcast I found, it was before you guys were around, was Radical Personal Finance. I actually think that's how I found you. I think I heard Brad talk about travel rewards on there, and that's how I found Choose FI. And from there, I was able to get a lot of information on how we could enhance our life without spending more income. So we used travel rewards extensively, and we did very, very often in our lowest income days. And then from there, I learned tricks like Go Curry Cracker. The episode with him taught me that because we are low income, we have an amazing thing available to us where all of these stocks that I've been investing in since I was 22 that have now hopefully increased in value, which most of them did, as you would expect, we can now sell them and resell them and pay 0% on the gains because we were in the lowest tax bracket. So we were selling these stocks this was 2017. We started capital gains harvesting. And what we were doing was not actually spending the capital gains. We would sell the stock and then almost immediately rebuy it. And so I learned all of these different tricks and all of these different levers. I learned a lot about the savers credit, and we were able to look back into our previous years and do adjusted returns and get additional refunds because of the money that we were putting in our IRAs. And there were just these amazing tips that I learned from the Choose FI podcast. And that's how I learned about Camp FI.
Yes. Now we got to talk about Camp FI here. So what were you hoping to get from Camp FI when you made the decision to go? And then what did you actually get out of it?
So the fact that I even went was kind of miraculous. The way that it went down was I heard about it and I went to look for tickets for the January event in Florida, and there weren't any available. Surprisingly, within 2 days of me checking, there was a post on Choose FI on the Facebook group where someone said, I need to sell my ticket last minute, but I'll sell it to you at cost. And this was less than 2 weeks before the event. So I talked to my husband and I said, well, this ticket, I think it was $300. Anyway, this ticket, which is not super expensive, $300, came available. I don't happen to have to work any of those days. Would it be okay if I go? And we decided that we would go, or that I would go. And I was able to use travel points in order to fly there. I used travel points in order to rent a car. So this basically, I went for 3 days, everything included for $300. It was really a wonderful thing. What I expected to get out of it, here's what I told my husband in order to get him to say yes. So I told him, I said, it's $300, but I bet I can get 5 times my money back in what I learn. I bet I will learn tools that will save us $1,500. And boy, that was on the very, very low side of what I learned and what I gained. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that just talking to people and learning what they've done, if you can extrapolate the essence of what they're talking about and implement it in your life, that equals very, very real dollars. So that's where I learned about the Savers Credit. There's a gentleman named Kevin Clack who told me, oh, Christine, you can go back and you can amend all of your tax returns. That was $3,000 right there. It was at Camp FI that I heard other people's stories. So I heard people that were living this FI lifestyle in ways that I never dreamed of. People living in tiny houses, people owning and running businesses, people that were doing things that I either didn't think about or was too afraid to even think to pursue. I started challenging people. So folks that were very close to retirement or very close to reaching their FI number, but were burnt out at work, that met several people like that. I said, I challenge you to try to find some more happiness and maybe slow down the end. Sure, you can work really, really hard and retire in 2 years, or you can maybe cut back those hours. Or, hey, in retirement, you want to start this business. What's stopping you from doing that now? If you're 2 years from FI, you definitely have the cushion to be able to do that. I think a lot of people feel like it's this all or nothing. I'm either working towards FI and working as hard as I can and saving all of my money and just burning the candle at both ends. Whereas people don't realize that as you're saving money, you're earning freedom along the way. It's not like you hit this number and all of a sudden, oh, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. If you're 2 years away from FI or 4 years away from FI, you have a lot of freedom to start building this life that you love that might still earn you income. And if it takes you an extra 10 years, but you're thrilled and happy doing it, then you're building a life that you're not so eager to retire from.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It really is about designing that life. What do you want your life to look like? I'm so interested that you challenged other people. And I'm curious, did they challenge you? Did you have any limiting beliefs going in there that they helped you overcome?
That is the perfect question. I think Campify gives you the opportunity to not only tell your story to people, but to hear a lot of other people's story. And there were a lot of people that said, Christine, you're working as a tour guide and making very little money doing this, but have you thought about opening your own business? And at that point, I had thought about it quite a lot, but I was very afraid to do it. What if it failed? What if I made less than I'm making now? We had very recently gone through that 85% drop in income, and those emotions, fears, depression, anxiety, they still to this day sit very close to the surface. I mean, I think they're a little lower down than they were a year ago, but they're still there. And so those tend to boil up a lot. And someone at Campfire used my exact words almost against me. And she said, Christine, I challenge you to go for it and to start your own business. I challenge you to do that. And I thought, oh man, well, now I'm screwed and I have to do this thing. And that's exactly what we did.
Okay. Well, I want to find out a little bit more about business building, but let's just set the frame. Your company, called A Little Local Flavor, has over 209 5-star reviews if you go to the Nashville TripAdvisor. And I was looking at this one, and you can, obviously, if you listen to your story, you get how amazing you would be as someone to show off a town or a city. But this person says, I had such a wonderful time on my tour with A Little Local Flavor. Christine was very informative, and I loved learning more about the city I live in. Some may think that taking a tour in the city you live in might not be as impressive, but I'm here to say that even after 5.5 years living here, I learned so much more than I knew, and also hidden gems that most people don't know. I love sampling foods and drinks from restaurants that I hadn't tried yet. I highly recommend taking a tour from this company. You will not be disappointed. And the reason I took the time to read that is, one, your passion comes through on this interview that we're doing today. And also I tie that to why you wanted to grow stuff in your yard. You said the ultimate benefit it gave to you was not income that it was producing, but as a way to engage your community, to get plugged into the community. This is powerful. This is what lights you up, and it's authentic.
Yeah, community is something that means so much to me. I think all growing up, there's been something on my heart where I have this, I just want to help people achieve their dreams. And what is really cool is we're a year into this business, and I now have a platform to do that, not only by hiring people, and we pay our guides very well, but also we work with local businesses, and bringing 2,000 people or 1,900 people to a family-owned business to eat and drink and promote their facility is hugely impactful on these small businesses. And I am so excited to see what we do, not just in 2019, but 2024, 2025, when hopefully we've got tours in many neighborhoods where we can really highlight these family-owned businesses that are doing really exceptional things.
Christine, obviously the business has worked out well, but you had this limiting belief of, can I do this? It's easy to say after the fact, oh, it was always preordained to be a success. And, some people look back like that, but I know that's not how you approach this. This was something that you had to overcome mentally. And what type of advice would you give someone who's thinking about starting their own business and really taking this big chance?
Yeah, Brad, there's a lot of things to think about. First of all, and I say this thinking and knowing that hopefully you've done a research. So definitely do your research on what the market is and what's available to you and what resources you might have that can help you be successful. But outside of that, I really challenge people to take the leap. Just start something. See if you can move something forward every single day. One thing that was very Probably the most impactful thing that we did last year is I really tried to work on momentum. One of the flaws in my character is when things start to stall, I start to move on. And so I tried to make sure that we were always moving forward. So try to take little steps every day to either build that life that you love or start working towards deciding whether or not starting a business might be right for you. But the key thing is to just start. Keep your eyes forward and don't look back. Just keep your eyes on what is the next thing that I can do to help make this even better.
Yeah, I think that might be the best advice I've heard for business building. Move something forward every single day. Take action, no matter how small. It's those psychological wins. And you just keep putting them one after the other. And like we talk about, the aggregation of marginal gains, you never know where you're going to be 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. Man, if you kept taking positive action every single day, good things are going to happen.
Absolutely. That is exactly it. And celebrate those wins, no matter how small, celebrate them, acknowledge them, because that's what's going to give you the drive and the passion and the momentum to continue moving forward. So don't be afraid to celebrate your first customer. Don't be afraid to celebrate your 10th customer. Celebrate them like they're your millionth, because at that time, that is such a huge milestone.
Christine, what's your savings rate now?
Oh, Jonathan. That is a really hard question to answer because I don't exactly know, but I do know it gets a little different with the business in that income. But at the same time, I know that we're going to be darn close to, I think we'll be 40 to 45% this year. And now granted, it is 40 to 45% of what will be a lower income than what we had before. But I'm really excited that we're really getting that savings rate up. And I think in 2020, we'll be at 50% savings rate.
This is insane. You guys over this journey have designed a future that you're excited about now, that you have no desire to retire from, and in the process have been able to cultivate for yourself a 45% savings rate. Someone's listening to this. They are so inspired by your story and the action that you and your husband took. They want to connect with you. What is the best way for someone to find out more about you, your business, and what you guys are doing?
Sure. So we're on several social media platforms. So you can find our website. It's alittlelocalflavor.com. You can contact me from there. So my email's on there, and you can also use some of the forms to contact us. All of that information comes directly to me. We are also on Instagram at A Little Local Flavor and Facebook as well.
And if we want to put a link on our show notes for your business so someone can sign up for a tour, what is the best way for them to book your service in Nashville, Tennessee?
Sure. We would love to show people around Nashville. And you can book our tours directly at our website, which is alittlelocalflavor.com.
Now, Christine, could I ask you a favor? Just because I think the tour guide, while it's a fantastic business that you've set up, is actually like a skill set that everybody would benefit from. How to get plugged into your community? Well, one great way would be able to be a tour guide for your city in an informal capacity. Would you be willing to join us on our Friday show to give us some skill sets that anybody could use if they want to be a better tour guide for their city?
Sure, I would absolutely love to.
All right, now most shows that would be the end of the episode, but on this show, we would love to give you the chance to tackle the hot seat. Are you ready for this?
I am so ready.
In a world drowning in debt and rampant consumption, trapped by the chains of lifestyle inflation, these questions highlight the secrets of those who have broken free. Welcome to the Choose FI Hot Seat.
All right, Christine, question number one, your favorite blog that's not your own?
I actually don't spend a lot of time reading blogs anymore. I try to stay away from the screen as much as I possibly can. So I'm a huge podcast listener. So of course, Choose FI. But as my life has changed pretty significantly, the two outside of financial podcasts that I'm listening to, one was Brad's recommendation, which is Impact Theory. And then the second one is Don't Keep Your Day Job. Those are both really, really excellent podcasts.
Ooh, tell us more about Don't Keep Your Day Job.
Yeah, Don't Keep Your Day Job is with Kathy Heller, and she interviews people that are small business owners and also people that are just kind of in the basis, kind of ground floor level of starting their own business. And she provides an insane amount of encouragement to people that are starting their own business. And it's really incredible. So if that's something that you're into, please look her up. She is phenomenal.
Oh, I am into it. That is amazing. All right. Question number two, your favorite article of all time. Now, this could be one of yours if you've written an article or someone else's.
I'm going to steal one from one of your previous guests. I was introduced to an article called 1000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly, and it was introduced in the hot seat by Vincent Puglisi on Freelance to Freedom, that episode. That article is amazing. Now, when you read it, you'll notice that they take customers and they kind of put a number value associated with it. And that's not really what I got out of it. What I got out of it is here I'm building this business, and there is a huge power to having what this article calls a true fan. And I put quotation marks around that. So having a true fan, and a true fan is somebody that loved my tour so much that they're going to A, leave a review, B, go home. And anybody that's going to Nashville, they're like, oh my gosh, you've got to book this tour. It was phenomenal. It was one of the best things we did on our trip. And so what that did at the time that I heard it, which was last summer, we were at this point where we were still kind of building the tour. We're always refining the tours and trying to improve them. And we were able to take the information from that article and say, okay, what can we do to make sure that we only deliver exceptional experiences? So my internal motto is only exceptional experiences, and it came pretty much directly out of that article.
That is super cool. Only exceptional experiences. I love that. And it is about finding these true fans, these raving fans who, because you're genuine, this is not contrived, you're not being spammy or scammy. You are producing the best possible experience for them. And what occurs because of that is they tell everybody they know. That's just being a good human being and providing the best possible experience for their valuable time and money. It benefits everybody. I love that.
That's exactly it.
All right. Question number 3, your favorite life hack.
This one is an interesting one. So my favorite life hack is bartending events. This is something that I've been doing for the last 2 years. I got a job bartending at our local arena. It's called Bridgestone Arena, and that's where our hockey team plays. But outside of the 41 regular season hockey games, what they do is they host concerts. I have heard the Eagles, Guns N' Roses, Elton John, Justin Timberlake, Keith Urban. I have heard all of these shows. And not only did I not have to pay for a ticket, but I average bartending $50 an hour. It is incredibly lucrative work. So I highly recommend people that are looking to make a little extra money. I know on the Facebook page, there's a lot of people that ask about, I'm looking for a side hustle. Can someone tell me these are the things I like, maybe something I can do? And I think people need to look at it from 2 different standpoints. There's folks that want to do something that they're passionate about, and that is wonderful. I think people need to realize that it's going to take some time before you're actually earning income from that thing. And then secondly, there's people that just need a little extra income in their life. And for those people, bartending and serving where you're going to make tips is an exceptional way to make a decent amount of income. I would say hourly. If you're personable, good at what you do, working at a place that's pretty busy, you can pretty much expect to make $20 an hour or more. And then if you're working events, it's very, very flexible, and you get the benefit of hearing these phenomenal concerts. And if you don't want to bartend, be an usher and make $12 an hour while you're watching the show.
That's amazing. So again, it's yet another example of how you turn what for most people is an expense into a line of income.
Exactly.
All right, Christine, question number 4, your biggest financial mistake.
So looking back, I don't have any mistakes that necessarily cost me an exorbitant amount of money, but I think my biggest financial mistake looking back at things was actually missing out on money because I was too afraid to have a financial conversation. When I moved to Nashville, I was offered a job, and they offered to not only pay my relocation expenses, but part of the kind of contract that I signed was that I would get an extra 1 month's worth of income once I moved, and that was to cover cleaning supplies and basically the things that the movers wouldn't be able to move and you have to replace. And when I got to Nashville, I was just so thankful to be in this beautiful city. And it was a pretty decent step up in income from where I was before. And that money never came through. And I was too embarrassed and too nervous to bring that up to my bosses to say, hey, when can I expect this amount of money? It's a really stupid, slap myself in the face, but I was 27 years old. I got promoted to this really phenomenal position, and I just was too uncomfortable to have that financial conversation with my superiors.
Huh. Why do you think that was?
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things was working in a manufacturing plant. I was one of 3 women out of 133 people. So every one of my superiors was a man. And also, I felt like I was making great income for my age, and I felt like it would be greedy for me to ask for that money. It was kind of a weird mental shift.
What is it like to be on the other side of that now and to be a business owner that has employees?
Oh, it's so stupid. I really wish that, if somebody said, "Hey, Christine, like you didn't reimburse me for this," I would be like, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Let me get that to you today." Like, it's so silly. You should always follow up on these types of things and don't be afraid to ask for more money. Like, don't be afraid to, in a review, say, "Hey, I think I am worth more than what I'm being paid." And B, if you're promised something, definitely follow up on it.
So yes, lesson learned, don't leave money on the table. Lesson 2, ask for a raise.
Yes.
All right. Question number 5, the advice you would give your younger self.
So when I was going through and thinking about this, the advice came to my mind immediately. And that was that I would tell my younger self, Christine, you're going to have an amazing life and you're going to get there. So stop worrying so much. Don't worry. Enjoy every single phase because the phases are going to go by really fast. And once they're gone, you can't really go back to that. And as soon as I thought that to myself, I thought, I need that advice right now, because I think that worry and concern for the future tends to overtake our minds often. Looking back, it's like, gosh, we made it to this amazing place. We made it past all the hard stuff. And we have the skills to always do that. I believe that no matter what setback comes into place, that Jack and I together can 100% overcome it. So why be so worried about the little nuances of day-to-day life?
Yeah, that's a great outlook. I mean, so many people get caught up in regret about the past or anxiety about the future. All you can do, like you said, you enjoy your life, you don't let it just slip away, and move something forward every single day. Just do something better, that tiny little thing to make your life a little bit better. You're going to enjoy the heck out of life. There's no point in being anxious about the future. That all you can do to control it is to take those actions that are going to make a better life. And I just love that.
All right, now we do have a bonus question for you. What purchase have you made over the past 12 months that added the most value to your life?
At the beginning of this year, I purchased Bluetooth noise canceling headphones. And I almost hate to say this, but it kind of changed my life. As I mentioned earlier, we have a roommate. And because I own a business, I'm spending increasingly more time working from home. And it is super important to sometimes be able to block out everything else and just focus in on accounting or marketing or writing copy for the website. And it's so much easier when I have these headphones I can put on and kind of escape into my own little world.
Yes, my wife's like, Jonathan, are you blocking me out? I'm trying. That's amazing. Christine, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. This has been incredible.
Thank you so much for having me.
To our audience, if you got value from today's episode, and if you've been getting value from the episodes up to this point, just take 1 second and press the subscribe button on the platform you're listening to this on. Just lets the providers know you're getting value from the show and you want to be here when we produce additional content. If you want to support us in what we're doing here at ChooseFI, here are 4 easy ways. 1, leave us an iTunes review. To do that, just go to choosefi.com/iTunes. 2, use our page to sign up for travel credit cards. If you want to travel the world with miles and points instead of your hard-earned dollars, then just go to choosefi.com/cards and get started today. 3, if you're working on the milestones of FI, set up a personal capital account to track your progress and use our affiliate link. It's completely free, and just go to choosefi.com/PC. P as in Paul, C as in cat. And 4, and most importantly, find your friends, coworkers, and family members who might be open to this message and tell them about the podcast. Have them start with episode 100. It is a fantastic starting place. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to Choose FI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.